In the early 1900s, certainly the 1800s, in the early 1900s, the playing field of medicine was very different than it is now. You know, back in the day, you had the homeopaths, you had the chiropractors, you had the naturopaths, you had the osteopaths, you had the herbalists, and you had the MDs. And by the way, MDs do not practice medicine. MDs practice a particular type of medicine called allopathic medicine, right? I'm a naturopath. I practice naturopathic medicine. There's homeopathic medicine, osteopathic medicine, chiropractic medicine. Well, guess what? The MDs practice allopathic medicine. I'll tell you what that is in a second. But in the early 1900s, the playing field in medicine was relatively level here, and nobody had the upper hand. There were turf wars, kind of like, you know, in the movie Gangs of New York, right? It wasn't the prettiest of all things, but, you know, nobody had the upper hand until 1910, when the Rockefeller Foundation and the Carnegies, it was actually the Carnegies that supported this. It was something called the Flexner Report. The Carnegies hired this guy named Abraham Flexner. He went all around the United States. Now, remember, this was before the interstate highway system, right? It took Flexner 5 years before the internet. It took him 5 years. He went all around the country on horseback and stagecoach and train. And he did an inventory of all of the medical schools and all of the hospitals in the U.S. that practiced MD-directed allopathic pharmaceutical medicine. Brought the list back to the Carnegies, which is famously referred to historically as the Flexner Report. And the Carnegies and then the Rockefellers proceeded to give millions of dollars of free money to the medical schools and the hospitals that prescribed drugs. Why? Because the Carnegies and the Rockefellers were deeply in bed with pharmaceutical companies. So guess what? If you're starting a business and I'm starting a business and you get $1 million of free money and I don't, well, guess who's going to have the bigger business? You will. This is why the MDs are in the driver's seat of medicine now. It is not because their therapeutics are more effective. It is not because their therapeutics are more scientific. And it certainly isn't because their therapeutics are safer. It's because of financial coalitions that were built at the turn of the century between the pharmaceutical industry and medicine. And everybody has forgotten about it. We look out of our windows today and we see, son of a gun, the only medicine that they make TV shows and movies about is MD-directed medicine. The only medicine that's practiced at my hospital is MD-directed medicine. The only medicine my insurance pays for is MD-directed medicine. Therefore, we unconsciously assume that the medicine that the MDs practice must be the best. Well, guess what? It's not. They are in the driver's seat only because of financial and political coalitions that were built at the turn of the century that have turned into a gigantic, out-of-control, monopolistic juggernaut, and we are dropping like flies because of it. But don't get me started.
Amazing. And again, notice I called it Rockefeller medicine. For people that don't know, the cancer industry, everything, the takeover of hospitals, phasing out charity in medicine that had always been demanded. The Hippocratic Oath 20 years ago, they phased that out. And now they're bringing in the death panels. Now we're seeing Carnegie, Rockefeller, all of them who were eugenicists, we're seeing it's death care. So they're even phasing out what was good that came out of the whole MD line and trying to turn it into pure evil now. And we go back to them being known as the monopoly men. They had already created all the monopolies over oil, steel, railroads. Now they're bringing the monopoly of medicine. But I notice in studies, the elites, British royalty, Dutch royalty, they all go to the herbalist and the naturopath. They all actually go to the other schools. They know something, don't they?
Well, it's interesting you should say that because old man Rockefeller had he kept a personal physician, a homeopath, as his personal physician, which is quite ironic when you think about it. Yeah, so, really, listen, Alex. The only reason that my profession, you think we have a free medical market here in the United States? Think again. Here's the deal. As a licensed naturopathic physician, here's what I had to do to become a naturopath. 4 years pre-med, 4 years naturopathic medical school, 1,000 hours of clinical supervision. I had to pass national boards and state boards, do 25 hours of continuing education credit. In Seattle, Washington, as a licensed naturopathic physician, I can deliver babies, prescribe drugs, order any diagnostic tests I want, work in hospitals, legally refer to myself as a physician, and it's all paid for by insurance. If I was to do exactly the same thing in Chicago that I did in Seattle, I'd be thrown in jail for a year and fined $5,000 for practicing medicine without a license, and that's just not right. We do not have a free medical market in the United States. It has been completely monopolized by the MDs for the last 100 years. And you know, you're right that the MDs are really excellent at trauma care and some type of infections. You know, if you have a bullet in your leg, you get your leg blown off in Iraq, you have a nasty pneumonia that botanical medicine couldn't fix, you break your leg skiing, you get somebody T-bones you at the intersection, they are good at that, but that is the only thing that allopathic medicine is good at. The reason that we have a healthcare crisis in this country, the reason that bankruptcy, the leading cause of bankruptcy is medical bills, the reason that our health is getting worse and worse and chronic disease is getting more and more is because MD-directed allopathic, reductionistic, pharmaceutical medicine for chronic disease does not work. It doesn't work. And Dr. Wallach and I are the only ones standing up on this hill and saying it. You know, look, you wouldn't take a Chihuahua duck hunting, right? You need a Labrador retriever for that. You wouldn't take a Chihuahua to find a lost kid in the wilderness. You need a bloodhound for that. Well, taking your body to an MD, bless their hearts, for a chronic illness is a fool's errand.
Well, you know, Dr. Blaylock's a renowned brain surgeon, and he basically says the same thing you're saying, too.
Well, the truth is a funny thing, right? It's hard to suppress the truth.
It is. Stay right there. We're going to come back and get more into this history and now where things are going. They're trying to really take over now. But continue with the history of this, because now it's out in the open. Bill Gates, who's heavily invested in all this eugenics, the Rockefeller Foundation that he's teamed up with, all of them. He comes out and says, I can play the clip. We've played it probably 30 times. People are like, no, don't play it again. We've heard it. Just type in if you want to see it, folks. Bill Gates endorses death panels. There's a couple clips, but he says, hey, kill grandma. Don't give her care the last year of her life. Just decide she's dead. Kill grandma. And that's a death panel, folks. He says that. And we can hire 10 teachers, and the teachers all start clapping. So this idea that now the government, run by these eugenicists and Big Pharma, now directs through the computer systems in the healthcare what you can be given. And in England, you've got to go to the National Health Service to even get permission from them to go see a private doctor. And Paul Watson, for a month, couldn't even get in to see him with a chest cold. And, was having to try some natural remedies and things that did help. But now they want to block you being able to get massive dosages of vitamin C or take trace minerals on top of regular minerals. And they say, oh, you need a very small dose. They want us sick. In fact, I've seen those studies, Doc, where the most unhealthy food in America is served in hospitals, and just everything they do is about, well, I mean, take breast cancer. It's race for the cure. Why don't we try to find out why there's almost a 3,000% increase in breast cancer and why the U.S. has the worst level in the world? Well, how about race for the cause, Doc?
Well, that's what we should absolutely 100% do, and you're right on the money here, Alex, because here's the thing. I mean, we are deeply embedded in this matrix, right? Every culture has a myth, and it's built into the fabric of society. Now, years ago, everybody was convinced that the Earth was flat, right, and everybody was wrong. After that, everybody was convinced the Earth was at the center of the solar system, and, everybody was wrong. The prevailing myth that we have right now, and it is a deeply embedded myth in this culture, is that MD-directed medicine equals medicine, and everybody else is a back-of-the-bus quack. It's just not true. The type of medicine that the MDs are trained in is one particular philosophy, one particular subset, aspect of medicine in general. And it is horrible. It delivers horrible results for chronic illness. I'll give you a perfect example. My colleague, Dr. Wallach, sued the FDA 8 times. He had to sue the FDA in order to secure something called a certified health claim. We had to sue the Food and Drug Administration so I can say what I'm about to say legally without being thrown in jail. You ready? 200 micrograms of selenium. 200 micrograms, it's a teeny-weeny amount of the mineral selenium, reduces the occurrence of breast cancer 82%. Reduces the occurrence of breast cancer by 82%. It reduces the occurrence of colon cancer, it reduces the occurrence of lung cancer, and it reduces the occurrence of colorectal cancer as well. Selenium, a simple mineral supplement, 82%. Why aren't the Susan G. Komen women marching for that? Because they don't know it. Why don't they know it? Because medicine in the United States is completely controlled by the MDs. The MDs are completely controlled by the pharmaceutical company, and nobody knows that there do, in fact, exist science-based, clinically verified alternatives for type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, osteoporosis, arthritis,
you know, Dr. Glidden, let me stop you. Let me stop because we're going to come back from break and get into that. And every time I've had you, folks on from Longevity, people like Dr. Wallach on, I forget, and he never toots his horn, that he's beaten the government all these times, one of the only people, because he can really prove it. That is so amazing, and that they do know all of this. The system knows. They know Prozac's going to make a lot of people commit suicide. They know aspartame eats holes in your brains. They know all this. This is cold-blooded.
That's correct. It's 100% cold-blooded, and one of the worst things anybody can do with a chronic health condition is visit an MD. It is one of the worst things that you can do. That's why my radio show on the GCN network is called Fire Your MD Now.
Well, very well said, and I'm glad that you're out there speaking out and exposing these people. I want to get into the 8 times you guys have sued the FDA and all the times you've won and each point you sued on. Let's get into that when we come back, because I've got to get Wallach back on. He had been on like a year, and point out that, wow, he never even toots his horn that he's done that with your help and others, because this is being proven. And that's why they're so desperate to suppress the type of information. And then his dad, and Ted lets me tell the story. It's very sad. I actually feel bad telling it. His dad has Alzheimer's. They go fishing, hunting. He couldn't really go fishing anymore because he didn't really know who he was. 6 months on Beyond Tangy Tangerine. His dad was able to fish, knew who he was. It was miraculous. They tested his blood. The doctor said, the medical doctor said, you're not allowed to have greens. Are you eating greens? And he said, yeah, that and Beyond Tangy Tangerine pollen burst and stuff. And he said, nope. He never had a stroke, never had a heart problem. It's just they don't want him to have one. He's on Coumadin. They said, you're not allowed to have the vitamin K that's in the pollen burst and the Beyond Tangy Tangerine and all of it. The pollen burst is just awesome with the vitamin B, the antioxidants, the anti-aging, the increased energy, reduces oxidative damage against stress. This is my second favorite, available at InfoWarsTeam.com. And guess what? The medical doctor's God, so he went off of it, and his dad faded away in a few months. And it's just, we literally sacrifice our children to the vaccines. We sacrifice our parents to the medical doctors. Dr. Glidden, I mean, this is a cult we're fighting. I mean, he was back, and the medical doctor said, no, you don't get to take that super mineral vitamin complex.
Oh, welcome to my world. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, and it is absolutely positively true. MD in the United States stands for medical deity. I swear to God, an MD could put a white coat on, strap a stethoscope around his neck, tell someone to jump off the roof of the hospital, and they'd do it. This is how far down the rabbit hole we have gone in our unquestioning genuflection at the altar of MD-directed medicine. We need to snap out of it. We need to stop it, because there exists right now, today, science-based, clinically verified alternatives to drugs and surgery for all chronic health conditions. And this weight loss is awesome, but I tell you, Alex, it's the tip of the iceberg. And you know what? Last year we spent $70 billion with a B dollars on vitamins in this country, and everybody is still sick. Why is that? Because when it comes to vitamins, the recipe is everything. Vitamins are like, you know, wine. They're all made from grapes, But there's a great deal of difference between Annie Boone Springs green apple wine and a nice Sonoma Cabernet, for goodness sake. I've been practicing naturopathic medicine for 20 years. I've been licensed for over 2 decades in the trenches, front-line, holistic medical care. And you get good results with holistic medicine. But as God is my witness, for the last 3 years, I have been mentoring with Dr. Wallach, following Dr. Wallach's clinical lead, using Dr. Wallach's nutritional supplements and his therapeutics. I don't even know what planet I'm on anymore, man, because Dr. Wallach has it dialed in. His therapeutics eclipse anything that I had previously been exposed to. And